Hey everybody. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about wording. I want to talk a little bit about wording. I think the most important thing to understand about making the statements, because I'm going to suggest highly that people try to make their own if they can, and add that to your statements list for the I am agreement before you execute. If you can do that, great. So the important thing to understand about it is that we want to stay away from negative connotation. I've actually done my own testing with this on a subconscious level. It just doesn't register. So if you were saying, I don't like tacos, the don't's not going to register, and it's going to actually be I do like tacos. In the mind, so it ends up being, it just doesn't register negative connotation. So I can't, don't, nevers, no, not, really just stay away from those. You can rephrase things in a different way. So in the case of I don't like tacos, you could say I hate tacos, or I guess let's say I have no friends would be I have lots of friends, and then you would just do the reverse, right? So if you say I have no friends, you want to delete that. Instead, you would say that won't work, right? I have no friends won't work because you have a no in it. So you could say I lack friends, delete, or I have lots of friends, accept. So, and that's kind of the concept, really. You just need to make sure that you're phrasing it in a way, and just understand that you can use the in and out process to just do the reverse of it so that it's phrased positively, and that's really important. I think it's really, this was covered pretty well by Eckhart Tolle, also, who did the Power of Now books, being in the present, being so important because that's where your power is. But he had mentioned in there several times, I believe, that we really don't, our mind really doesn't understand the negative connotation, and so we've had muscle tests where I've actually tested it where somebody said, I have no friends, and then I have friends, and it would still come out the same. So it really does hold true when you put it to muscle testing. So just know that you don't want to end up putting something in backwards. Although I don't know that I've talked about it much, but there's language in the way the agreement is stated that it's only going to bring in that which is basically going to be in your highest good, and that which is in alignment with your free infinite God self. And so what will happen is, or what should happen, at least so that's the intention of the document, is that if there's something in there that's worded improperly, it's just gonna fade out. It's not gonna put in something bad for you, because there's just way too many stipulations in the agreement. I put in, I felt like I spent a year putting the most intricate protections into the grid language intentions. This thing takes the cake. I put way more into this, and it was done surprisingly quickly. I mean, we've been working on it slowly over the course of the year, but the bulk of it has been done just in the last couple months. So I just want to make sure people understand that negative language isn't gonna affect them if they do word it improperly. It's not like you're going to be putting in terrible things into your field. It won't work that way. It'll cancel out. I also put language in there about trying to have conflict resolution done. If there's language in there that creates conflicts, that it gets resolved also by the free infinite God self. When you say free infinite God self, the important thing is to understand that the reason it's worded that way is that the reason that we've gone into this place, into this state of fear, is because we've given our power away. And so it's really important to basically recognize that sovereignty in us, and giving our power back, and knowing that connection, that point within you is where your power is, that you're not powerless. I work with people a lot, all the time, and it's really the number one thing, and it's hard for them to grasp it at first, because most people, they go to the doctor and they think the doctor will fix them. They, go to the therapist and they think the therapist will fix them. They take a medication and they think the medication will fix them. People, it's not that. It's you. You are your power. Okay? I tell people all the time, I am only facilitating you, healing you. Okay? I'm only facilitating you, resolving your conflicts within yourself. You're your power. When you're doing this process and if somebody is being facilitated, it's not the person doing that work, it's you. Okay? So that's the whole point. That's what sets the narcissist victim on a spiral. It's because they've handed over their power to this mind virus, and it's gone on a rampage with it, further empowered with it, because they've just empowered this thing. And we continue to do so with all these agreements we hold, and with continuing to give it away. You're extremely powerful. Every one of us. It's interesting because when you look at the universe, it's very fractal. I don't know how many people understand the real concept of a holograph. Greg Braden did a great job on explaining this. When you take a true holograph and you cut it in half, the entire picture that was the once complete holograph then becomes two, and both of those will contain the whole picture in it. So when you say God's self, we have to understand that concept, because each one of us contains the full picture. Okay? I tried really hard to show how that scales in the prelude, so that you can see, from the smallest to the largest, how it all kind of has the same form. So that's why when I say that you are the power, each one of us is. But there is this seemingly universal concept that everybody has choice. And so it's in our choices, it's in these agreements, it's in these thoughts that we're having, where we are making these choices, and that's where our power lies. And that's why the message of Eckhart Tolle was so important, that it's in that moment. That's why your power is in the now, because you are literally using that quantum, the choice, to define your life. But there is that element of that we're keeping track, and the mind being in charge right now with most of us is problematic, because it really doesn't have the higher thinking, higher level understanding and access to that God point. I want to say, I think I want to explain just a little bit about my thinking on the hand sequence. I'm going to try and explain this, and I'm not a doctor or any of that. So this is how I came to the theory about the hand positioning. It largely has to do with some of the videos and the books and stuff that I've read with polyvagal theory, and really what I see. It was interesting, the sequence of research that I had done, because first I had listened to Candace Pert. My takeaway from Candace Pert was that the subconscious mind was stored in every cell, and that everything that we need pretty much is in the body to correct our conditions. She went into things from a very not so spiritual perspective, and then because of the work she did, she ended up landing in the total opposite category of realizing, even down to the point of that the chakras, the chakras that everyone talks about all the time, and there's actual bundles at those locations in the nerves going up the spine, which was really helpful for me, because I kind of had gone wishy-washy about the chakra system for a while there. So knowing that there was an actual physical, there was something physically present there that she had found with respect to these chakra points in the electrical system, knowing so much that our electrical system is really, really important, to our process. But anyway, so the subconscious mind being stored in the physical cells, and then I had done so much work in so many different classes and different certifications and so much research on subconscious issues. So that was, it was interesting to me that, I was of everyone else's beliefs that it was all in the brain, and it's nonsense. It's not. I don't believe for a second it is, especially after listening to her work. So yeah, Candace's work was really enlightening. And then when I was trying to, I had hit this wall about psychopathy where I'm like, okay, if this is so widespread and we have no solution for this. There's no known solution. I mean, I know from listening to all the different experts that narcissism is made worse by going to therapy because they learn new tools to use against us. So that doesn't work. And so I was really frustrated with that, and I was reaching out to try and understand, thinking there has to be a way to fix this issue. We need one. So we need to make one, and my intention was I will find one. I don't care what it takes. And so then I told the story in the prelude about how I had a bee, like right after that, I had this bumblebee, as I'm driving down the freeway, this bumblebee flies into it's just hovering in front of my window in the middle of traffic. It was just such a weird place for a bee to be. That it was definitely something I took note of. And so I went back later and I researched bees and, the fact that it says next to stubborn flowers, they will just hover there and vibrate, and they just have to work at it longer, so they just have to kind of hold that space and vibrate next to the flowers. That they call them the stubborn flowers. And so that they can pollinate. So, which I thought, well, what does that mean? And then I started looking at, I was thinking neck, and then in the Bible study group, it mentions all the different. There was multiple different versions of the quotes, because there's so many Bible versions. But it was talking about stiff-necked people. And it's stubborn. It says a stubborn people and a stiff-necked people, which made me wonder. And then when I looked at the neck, that's when I ran into the polyvagal theory, which was talking about two frequencies, which I have since decided how I refer to it anyway, is like having two CB channels. So if you had two CB channels going, and one is in the lower, as he calls it, the lower vagal tone, which is predatory, and then there's the higher vagal tone, which is communal, and it's higher thinking and the ability to have empathy, which is interesting because if you look at the studies of societies that have empathy and compassion, they do well. They do very well. So that's interesting. So I started paying attention to that, and I said, well, okay, what does that have to do with it? So there's two CB radio, so there's two channels out there, and we've got the CB radio, and we're switched on one channel, we're on the predatory channel, and so if you're that guy and you're sending out your help messages on the predatory channel, do you want to be that guy? Yeah, I don't want to be that guy. I was that guy, and there is no help to be found there. It just gets worse. But then when you switch over to higher vagal tone, for example, where you're in that community of assistance, and so your brain is like a radio, and so it's like I'm setting out from this higher level, and I'm able to get higher level help, but the trick is, there was another video I had watched where they had done, they did a correlation between the body and the Bible. Just know that I research all areas, so this is one of them. And they had done a correlation between the body and the Bible, and they were telling the entire Christ story in the anatomy of the human being. And so it was interesting because this was the crucifixion point, right here, right at the throat. It's where the body dies, and then, it's the crucifixion, so then spirit comes in. So anyway, I don't want to misinterpret anyone. I've put all these links into Prelude, so you're welcome to go check them out. If they're not in the body, they will be in the citations. And I think that was, the gentleman's name was Santos, and it was referring to the Christos, and he was talking about Christos oil that moves up and crosses the throat and goes up into the pineal pituitary, and it opens up the third eye, I guess. Then it creates access to higher thinking and more information, and so it was just very interesting how this all correlated, and so it made me have a better, I think, more of at least a new understanding of what that might mean, and how there may be two frequencies going, at least two channels going, where one is really crummy and one is really great, essentially. But, everything was pointing to fear being what breaks it down, which was interesting. So in a fear state, so my theory on it was that in a fear state, whatever is happening at the throat tends to shut down, and we can't access higher thinking. I'm pointing to the brain, but understand that it's really a heart-centered thing. But this is where everything transmits and receives. Everything processes at the heart. It's in a heart coherent state, but it's important for us to be able to access and have that radio, essentially, to this different frequency. It doesn't happen in a fear state, okay? It doesn't happen in a fear state. So you have to remove the fear, which is why the M agreement is so good, because you literally are clearing out so many things that you're afraid of, and then all that leaves is just a handful of things you got to address. It gets you out of a fear state, so quickly, so you can start accessing higher processing. Now, the reason I do the hand sequences, first of all, our hands are electric circuits. If you've ever taken Qigong class, you're gonna know you have energy in the hands. Reiki, they will tell you there's energy in the hands. You can see it. There's photography. There's called Carillion photography. You can see the energy. So the hands are extremely powerful. And I also found that Maru Foundation, it's so much about the hands, and they actually were able to take the hands, and the entire Hebrew alphabet is all about kind of like, they can move the hand to show the different positions. He was able to show the entire Hebrew alphabet literally is the different positions of the hands. It's beautiful. I would check out his work. It's amazing. So yeah, lots of things to be said about that. So what we're doing is using the hands to bypass whatever this switch is that's locking us into fear. And so that's the idea. So if this is required, not from a Christos oil perspective necessarily, but if it's required to electrically, because our entire electrical system in the spinal cord, to try and get past this problematic region, we're just bypassing it. We're creating our own electric circuit, right? Around it, while we're making this change so that we can get out of the fear state, because otherwise it's a very slow process, okay? Otherwise it's a process of slowly working through your stuff. You're doing affirmations all the time. You're trying to get all the subconscious junk out. You're trying to change the way you feel. So it's a much slower process because we don't have the higher level processing access. It's like once you finally get to this point where you feel good and you've done your affirmations and you've finally worked your way out of these things slowly, at that point then the fear starts to fall away and we can start to slowly access higher thinking. This is a bypass. It is a bypass. I love that it looks like an infinity sign, but it is. It's a bypass to get the data from here to the heart. So the heart can do what you are intentionally telling it you want to change your agreements with the universe, with everything, and with yourself. And you're saying, I'm going to do things differently. I need to get this higher level information so that I can make that happen. And so that's really what it's about. We talked a lot about the morphic fields, and so that's in there. I try to put links into that so that people can do that research. I mean, you want to do this research. Most people probably just run the agreement and see the difference, and then maybe they'll be more interested and start digging into why. That's fine. That's great. But all I care about is it works for you. But I do want to explain some of these concepts. I tried to explain all this in the prelude. It's not too horribly long. I think it's like 34 pages or something. It's worth the read. You can understand how I came to these conclusions. But yeah, I just want to explain why that is the circuit and why it's working so well, because it's really moving past this. I mean, another thing to note too is there's actually electrical therapies that they've been doing on the vagal nerve. They've done that to try and treat certain mental disorders, which I thought was really interesting. And then there's other people that are in the spiritual community that do sequences with the hands, or they'll do shocks. Like there's actually little shocking devices you can do to help trigger the vagus nerve, the vagus nerve to try and reset it on an energetic level. So while I don't know that this all would be completely identical to the way polyvagal theory was explained, it lines up with the biblical stuff. It lines up with the work that I was listening to. Santos Bonacci, I think is his name. But it makes a lot of sense. And then when you think about the bee, right? We'll think about the bee again. It's about bringing that pollen up through that stiff neck of the flower. It's kind of interesting. So, yeah. So basically, I think the message is that the fear was creating, this lockdown. Essentially, that's what was helping. That's what's contributing to. Well, we know fear is contributing to the psychopathy, but that the potential way of dealing with it is to bypass the throat region. To help create that circuit, and then if you can get them to make a different choice. And the one nice thing is we're not giving them a new tool. Okay, so this is one of the things I love, and you can't I think it's totally possible to get a narcissist to sit down and do this, because especially if they're hoovering, if you're in a place where you're centered and you're not getting triggered anymore. There's ways that you can, convince them to give it a shot, and they don't care because it doesn't take very long, so they're like, sure, but yeah, I mean, if you can get them even for a few minutes to seem like there's some, because I know that anybody that's been in these relationships, they've seen some flicker of something they think is there. So if there is a person behind it, and it's not, it's not all computer, because it's hard to say. There's some people that feel like there's nothing there to find. It's just an empty, hollow shell of whatever it is. I don't know, but it's certainly one way to rule it out, because I've seen some pretty big changes. I mean, just in me being around them, it's like the bee buzzing, right? I've done the work. And I'm not in a fear state now. I'm holding this space, and they're starting to do some strange changes. If it was just me, that'd be one thing, but it's not just me. It's like, so far, it's everybody that's done the work that has a narcissist or some kind of a person that's on this spectrum. They're seeing different behaviors in those people. So it could just be their field is different, and so the recipient of that, has to comply. It could be that it is actually creating some kind of effect of change in them. Really difficult to determine, but at this point, it's certainly worth people researching this, because I do think that the vagus nerve has something to do with it, and treating that might be real helpful. But I've been able to get my narcissist to sit down and do this. I think if you're calm and centered, you can get in front of it, get creative. You might be able to get them to do this agreement. It's not like you're handing them a tool that they can do damage with. You're not, because they can't put negative stuff in to the agreement for you. I mean, it would all get shot down by the infinite God self. It would just get basically negate out, if anything. So, because it has all those stipulations in there that it can't be unless it's for your highest good. So that's going to, So that they can't. It's not a tool that they can use negatively. That's a beautiful thing. It's all based on heart coherence. So here I am. I'm sitting here with what would potentially be has seemingly been a mind firewall, right? And Robert Duncan was really adamant that there was no known protections for the mind. Even the government just uses a patsy instead, to put a patsy between them and the people that are really doing things, just in case, that person that they're nailing has some kind of skill at fighting back. So they put some poor patsy in between, so it's like they don't even really have a firewall. I mean, nobody knows. So the beauty is, even by putting this technology out there, even if the government took it, they have to go into heart coherence to use it. Go for it. I encourage you. That's the fix. Please do. Please use this. I mean, part of me really hopes that there are sane people out there that somehow have gotten stuck in these programs that are so afraid of them that because there's no firewall for them, that they could be remote heart attacked, or all the bazillions of things that are on this just awful list from this research you wouldn't even believe. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I could see how you could come in from a college and think it's going to be one thing, and then get signed up for it and realize that you're killing people and hurting people. But you know that if you leave, you're trapped, and I get it. But what I'm saying is, this is a solution, and if people run it, if you've been in, let's say you work in the government and you are afraid, and you run this program, test it out a little bit, see if anything can hit you, and if you're good, dude, you can stop. This is the way to get the people that do want out, so that may be the domino effect of finally getting some change, because I think there is probably an element of people that are doing these things that don't want to. I look at that because I've looked at that before, because even in the workplaces, you look at the people at the top that run. I'm not saying for me, but I know just kind of in general, the people that run things in a lot of the companies, they're a mess at the top, and the little guys at the bottom are just killing themselves. Those people are the ones really doing all the work. So if those people have a way to quit, just saying, they might as well. Most of these people are probably like, yeah, it may be a beautiful paycheck, but if they could get out, but it's probably, there's elements here of, I could be killed by a heart attack. They could make me, they can jerk my arms and make me run into a tree. And they could, run something and hurt my kids. Well, I'm just saying that so far what I've seen is this turns off it turns off almost all of it, and, I don't know what it isn't turning off at this point. It's a little hard for me to say, because I don't have any more of the tech stuff that's hitting me. I don't have any more of the thoughts that aren't mine. I used to be so depressed. I couldn't even sleep. I'd have to sleep with TV, which actually was making it worse. But I'd have to sleep with TV because I couldn't turn my head off. It was constant. It was always fearful thoughts, fearful thinking. It was a terrible existence. So yeah. Basically, I guess all I'm saying is this is definitely a way for people to be safe and be protected, and the people at the bottom are the ones that get it done. You know who you are. So try this if you get this message. Try this and be careful about how you get it tested. But if it's working, by all means, this may be a way to not be forced into continuing to do massive harm to humanity if you're one of those poor people. So because I know, I'm sure, like I said, you see it in companies where the people at the bottom they realize the insanity of what they're doing, and yet they need the paycheck, or they just don't know how to get out of it. And I suspect that's probably the case. There's no reason to fear. You are your power, and giving your power back, that's the whole point. And yeah, much love to everybody. I really hope this works, and I really hope people will send me feedback, and send in your before and after assessments. That'd be fantastic. I'd love to see how well people are doing with that. And if you want to set up an appointment, feel free. If you're looking for alternatives, check Frogbox. I have a ton of people listed on there. It's just ones that I've personally tried to run into, or I was impressed with. And so much love goes out to all these people on my citations list. I've done everything I possibly could to make it known, the resources and the avenues that I've looked down. I couldn't list them all. Honestly, this story starts back when I was 18. I just didn't realize it. That's a whole nother story. So I couldn't possibly list everybody, but at least from the last couple of years, these are the ones that have made all the difference. What you're doing is important, every one of you. Every one of us needs to keep on this track and not give up, and just get out of fear. And you're strong. The narcissist victims, you are so strong. You just don't even know. And this is just what you need to hear. And know that you are your power, and the fact that you've been targeted is because you are so powerful. So now we just get that straightened out for you, and you will be quite the force to be reckoned with. So anyway, I'm signing off, and I hope this works for everybody. Let me know how it works. Take care.